Hey everybody, this is Helen Moses, and I am here with a very special woman named Beth Loddig. Beth, there's Beth. She is a wonderful friend of mine that about a year ago was more of just an acquaintance. But I met her at a conference on the West Coast and had this feeling last September when I started getting this urge to finish a book that I had started writing about 3 years earlier, that I should reach out to Beth and see if she could help me. Beth is the owner of Inspire Books, which is her own business, and she helps authors, especially first-time authors like me. She was a big help to me to get going, to help. I hired her as my writing coach. And what I now call her is my book doula, because we have been through a whole lot together. And I'm technically self-publishing. I'm not publishing under her company, but you do offer that for people, correct?
I do.
But she's been my writing coach and my hand holder, and I'm excited to have her here so we can just talk a little bit about this process. Beth, what was this like for you?
Well, that's a great question. It was, in one word, a joy. And though my company covers working with authors from idea all the way to print-ready files, this part of it, the writing coaching, is my absolute favorite. And the reason for that is because I get to work with writers who are just thinking about a book idea, and I can tell they have a calling, and they really just need some encouragement. They need to understand some clarity around their idea, who their target audience is, and it's such a joy to see that, like that progression from idea to 1 chapter, to 3 chapters, to 5 chapters, to a book, and then get to walk through the whole process of seeing it designed and coming about. And it's really exciting. It really is like being a doula. And I've done it so many times now, I guess I should call myself a book doula. But it really, the coaching part, it's just such a natural extension of what I've done for 15 years as an editor and publisher. And again, it really is my favorite part. And I loved working with you, and I still love working with you.
Well, the good news is that we don't have to stop. We've already talked about the fact that we have ideas for branches out from Voice Unleashed into new types of books, and then
Right.
whatever else may be in store for us in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a bit about the process. So back when we first started working together, and we sort of had this immediate connection and knew that it would be a good fit to work together. Right. We started out, I had written a few chapters earlier, back about 3 years prior, and had set them aside. And I was able to reuse some of that material, but I basically started from scratch about a year ago. So I think what we did first was come up with sort of a chapter outline. Is that what you recall?
That's right. And if you think back all the way to the beginning, we usually start with a discovery call, and we talk about what your idea is and who you think your target audience might be, who your ideal reader might be. And of course, as you know, that gets refined and niched down to your real ideal reader, and then that's who you're writing to the whole time. Mm-hmm. So you're pretty standard in what you came to the table with. You had an idea, you had a really good idea of your ideal reader, and you had some content that you'd already been thinking about, and that's usually where I have a good starting point with people. So we like to start with the idea and a concept, and we create a path. And we start creating that path by doing an outlining session. So I don't know if you remember, we get in a Google Doc and we talk about what's the path? What were the different realizations you had? What were the different steps? How might that look if it were a path for your ideal reader to take? And this can be a path that most writers can follow. Sometimes it's more of a 3-section, 9-step process, but that's something that we determine it's customized for each author, but there's really a pretty simple format that you can apply to most nonfiction books. And that's what we do in that first session, is really get to know what you want to write, who you want to speak to, who you want to serve well, and what value that you can bring with your book for them. Because really, for all intents and purposes, you're solving a problem for that reader. And that's what you want to really recognize and get clear on from the very beginning, because if you don't know that, you can end up writing dozens of chapters that have no value or significance for your reader. But if you're honed in on that, it just makes everything that much more clear.
Yeah, I was honed in on that pretty well because we learned pretty quickly that you are actually one of my target readers, right smack in the
Yeah.
middle of the target, which made having you as my writing coach all the more effective because you could experience it as the target reader. I know one thing that happened, and we'll make this the last question, but one thing that happened is life kind of got in the way. Some issues with my daughter came up, some health issues, and then COVID came up, and just a lot of different things sort of put pauses in the writing process. But I wonder if you could share how wonderful it was to see, from my perspective, you can just tell me yours in a second, but you helped me see that when I thought, oh my gosh, I'll never get back to it, how am I going to do this, that actually every single time there was some kind of part of the story that emerged from those times off. And just encouraged me to just be patient, and lo and behold, they all ended up adding to it and bringing it to what we think is really the right time.
Exactly. And this is what comes with walking with someone through the writing process and having someone that's coaching you through it, is you have someone that you can, you can tell your frustrations and concerns, and they can say, you know what, I've been through this before. It's going to be okay. There's probably a reason why you're walking through this challenging time. And in your case, there really was an incredibly significant reason why your book was delayed a little bit. So it just confirms in me every time I walk through this with another author that, don't worry, it's going to come out when it comes out, and there's probably a reason why it's delayed. So just rest and have peace and continue walking through the process, and you'll figure it out towards the end, and it all comes together. As stressful as it can be towards the end, it
Yeah.
always is.
Yes.
It all comes to, you're kind of like white knuckling it on the end of the roller coaster
Yeah.
ride, but it all comes together, and it's just, nothing is better than holding that book in your hand.
Yeah, and my very first copy is supposed to arrive tomorrow. I ordered just a single copy, and so I could just have that before I purchase a big bulk of them. But it's supposed to be here tomorrow, and I'll get to hold it in my hands. All right. Well, Beth, thank you for helping me give a glimpse into the writing process to others who might be interested. And we have a little bit more work to do before the launch next week, but we are almost there. We're like 99.9% of the way there. Thanks, Beth, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.